Welcome to SoulScripture, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary and the voice you've been seeking meets you right where you are. Chosen one. Hear me clearly. This is not a random message, nor is it a casual encouragement meant for any ear that happens to stumble across it. If this found you, it is because heaven itself has orchestrated your arrival here. Right now, there is a surge in the spirit realm, a current of divine intention with your name written on it. You've been called out, marked, and set apart for such a time as this. The urgency you feel is not in your imagination. There is a shift in motion, and it is not coming later, it is pressing in now. Heaven is spotlighting you, not because you begged for it, but because you have already walked through fire and proven that you were never just a survivor, you are an original, a remnant, a carrier of the divine pattern. Let's be blunt. So many people walk through life longing for recognition, hoping that someday someone will finally see what they have carried in silence. But you, chosen one, are being elevated for a different reason. It's not just about reward, it's about a reckoning, a spiritual validation, a testimony that radiates through every layer of your life. God's gaze is on you, and it is fierce. The world may have overlooked you, underestimated you, or questioned your worth, but heaven has been charting every step, every tear, every moment you chose faith over comfort, vision over visibility. Right now, the universe is in alignment. Your spirit is in alignment, and the old delays are being dismantled. This is a holy summoning. You see, this season of elevation is not just for your benefit. It's a message to every watcher, both seen and unseen, that God still rewards those who walk in authenticity. You're not here by accident. You are divinely appointed to rise at a time when the world desperately needs a living example of hope, courage, and unwavering truth. And while others may chase blessings for the applause, you have lived the kind of story that only heaven can truly applaud. Every wound you carried in silence, every act of obedience when no one was watching, these are now being multiplied in the spirit. The scales are tipping in your favor, not because you played it safe, but because you chose to risk everything for the voice that calls you higher. You may have wondered if you missed your moment. Maybe you felt passed over or too worn out to ever be lifted again. But I'm here to declare, as surely as light pierces darkness, that your time is now. There is an urgency to this word, because God is not just preparing you, He is positioning you. Doors are about to open, not by coincidence, but by covenant. This elevation is strategic. It is surgical in its timing. You cannot afford to shrink, to doubt, or to dilute your presence now. The atmosphere is shifting, and heaven's agenda is accelerating in your direction. Everything you endured was not wasted. It was seed. And now, the harvest is coming pressed down, shaken together, and running over. So lean in, chosen one. Receive this as your confirmation, your validation, and your spiritual assignment. This is your wake-up call, your activation. You are not just rising, you are being launched. Heaven is smiling. The earth is waiting. And your elevation is unstoppable because you are exactly who God says you are. And your story is just getting started. When the lights were out and the map disappeared, you kept walking. Chosen one. Your journey has not been a parade down a sunlit street. It has often felt like a pilgrimage through a moonless wilderness. This is not a small thing in the eyes of heaven. There are many who will leap when the path is clear, who will obey when the crowd is cheering, but very few who will step forward when God's voice seems to be the only faint signal in the dark. Yet you, yes, you have moved without a blueprint, trusted without evidence, and clung to the sacred whisper inside, even when the world called you reckless. That kind of faith, the faith that walks in shadows and acts on unseen instruction, is what shakes the corridors of heaven. Your obedience was not flashy. It didn't make headlines or gain instant applause. In fact, there were nights when you wondered if you were the only one left, holding onto a vision that no one else could see. But that secret yes in your heart was louder than any shout from a stage. You obeyed when it made you look foolish, when it cost you comfort, when all logic said, wait, but your spirit said, go. God saw you standing on the edge of your own fear, stepping out on faith so raw that it made your hands shake. Do you realize what you carried through those seasons? The ancestors and the great cloud of witnesses looked on and recognized the same pattern in you that ran through Moses, who crossed the Red Sea before the water parted, or Esther, who risked everything on an unspoken invitation. Obedience in the dark is not just faith, it is partnership with the miraculous. Every step you took, every act of trust when there was no guarantee, wrote new chapters in your destiny. You didn't demand a spotlight. You became the light. You learned to recognize God's presence, not by outward signs, but by the echo in your spirit, the same way a child knows a parent's footsteps, even in the dark. The world around you misunderstood your resilience. They saw confidence, but underneath was trembling faith. They assumed you had it all figured out, but you were simply anchored in something deeper than knowledge, anchored in the unseen, anchored in divine certainty that transcends logic. Every yes you gave in secret, every tear you shed when nobody knew, became the very currency of your elevation now. Heaven is not rewarding a performance, it is responding to authenticity. Don't forget, there were moments you almost gave up. At times, the pressure seemed too much, and you wanted to retreat to something safe, something explainable. But you didn't. You pressed on, not because you were fearless, but because you understood that obedience is greater than outcome, that being in alignment with God's will is safer than all the world's approval. Your hidden sacrifices, your silent trust, your steady movement through the fogle of these have marked you for elevation. Right now, God is lifting you not just because you endured, but because you obeyed without applause, believed without evidence, and trusted when all you had was a whisper. You are living proof that the ones who obey in darkness are the ones chosen to shine in the light. Chosen one. Your secret obedience has become the foundation of your public elevation. This is why the shift is happening. This is why heaven is moving on your behalf. There are seasons when silence is the loudest sound you'll ever hear. Chosen one. If you know what it means to pray and be met with nothing but stillness, to search for a sign and find only the quiet echo of your own faith, most would have taken the silence as a signal to turn back. But you, against every logical instinct, held on. You didn't just survive the quiet, you let it refine you. While others equated silence with absence, you discovered its true meaning: preparation. In those long nights where your prayers seemed unanswered and your soul ached with uncertainty, you became something rare, a person who trusts not in the noise of blessings, but in the unwavering memory of God's promise. The world may call this delusion, but heaven calls it strength. This is the heart of a remnant, a faith that doesn't depend on external evidence, but is rooted in a covenant so deep that the silence becomes sacred. Think back to the stories of the ancients of Joseph, forgotten in a prison cell, of Elijah in the cave, of Hannah weeping in the temple. Silence wasn't God's absence, but the sacred interval where strength and identity are forged. And you, too, learned how to stand when God seemed hidden, how to worship in the waiting, and how to let hope survive where others would have allowed doubt to swallow them whole. When the blessings delayed, when the answers were withheld, when even your closest confidence couldn't reach your pain, you still pressed in. Heaven noticed every moment you lifted your eyes in the dark. Every time you whispered, "I believe," even as your heart broke. Every time you opened sacred scripture on weary mornings. Every moment you chose to stay in covenant. You were making a declaration in the spiritual realm. I am unshakable. You didn't serve for a prize. You served because of love. You didn't praise because of the promise. You praised because of the presence. Your endurance in the silent seasons was a signal to heaven that you could be trusted with more. You didn't fold under pressure. You didn't trade your devotion for answers or trade your worship for comfort. When your path looked nothing like the promise, you remained. And now, because you endured what others would have escaped, the tables are turning in your favor. God is preparing to speak so loudly in your life that even the echo of those silent seasons will seem distant. This is a word for you. The silence was never punishment. It was the proving ground. Heaven has been watching, not just for your faith, but for your faithfulness, because you clung to God when there was nothing tangible to hold on to. You are now being trusted with doors that don't open for everyone. The very silence you endured will become the platform for your testimony, the quiet endurance that rewrote your legacy and set the stage for elevation. Chosen one. The next sound you hear will not be silence, but the unlocking of miracles you never saw coming. Heaven is about to break its silence on your behalf. Chosen one. You have walked through a world obsessed with shortcuts and easy pleasure. Yet you made a decision that set you apart. You chose purity in a season when compromise is considered the norm. Your refusal to bow to the demands of this age when every voice around you tried to lure you into comfort, conformity, or quick satisfaction became a beacon in the unseen realms. What the world called too strict, too intense, or too sensitive, heaven celebrated as set apart, anointed, and trustworthy. It was never just about what you didn't do. It was about everything you actively protected. You guarded your heart, shielded your purpose, and refused to trade your oil for temporary gain. Even when loneliness stalked your spirit, even when opportunities vanished because you wouldn't compromise, you stayed the course. You didn't just protect your body, you protected your destiny. Your boundaries became your battleground, and every no you whispered in the dark sent a message to the spirit realm. This one can be trusted. Avlay. Remember, the greatest tests rarely happen in the spotlight. They happen in the secrecy of thought, in the privacy of intention, in the quiet corners of your own mind. The battles you fought were often invisible to everyone, but God choosing not to be bitter when hurt, not to covet when overlooked, not to let ambition twist your assignment. And each time, you came out clean, not for the applause of man, but for the approval of heaven. Let's be real, purity in today's world is not weakness. It is resistance. It is spiritual warfare of the highest kind. You were waging a war for your soul in a culture that wanted to numb you, distract you, and dilute your calling. But instead of blending in, you allowed God's fire to purify you. Even when it burned away the familiar and left you exposed, the world offered you shortcuts, but you chose the narrow, holy path. You surrendered popularity for purpose, and comfort for calling. Heaven has been keeping score in secret places. While others chased platforms, you chased presence. While they compromised for momentary applause, you waited for the affirmation only the divine can give. Many think that elevation comes simply from talent, but you now know God elevates the pure-hearted, because higher altitudes come with greater temptation. He needed to know you could stand firm when the pressure increased, that you wouldn't sell your soul for recognition, that your integrity would remain intact in the face of influence. Now, chosen one, the same purity that cost you friends, comfort, and sometimes even your sense of belonging, is becoming the key that unlocks a new realm of favor. God is about to pour out honor in public because you honored him in private. You didn't just resist corruption once, you lived a lifestyle of continual consecration. That's why this next elevation is not just bidgets pure. The blessing won't change who you are, because it's coming to the real, uncorrupted you. You were forged in the fires of discipline. And now, God is about to pour back into you everything the world said you missed. Your reward will be both visible and lasting. Heaven is proud. The time for your vindication is now. You know what it means to give when you're running on empty. Chosen one. Your journey has been defined by moments where you had every reason to withhold, every excuse to retreat into self-preservation, and yet you poured yourself out anyway. While others were waiting for their blessing before becoming a blessing, you were already the answer to someone's midnight prayer. There is a kind of generosity of spirit, of love, of encouragement that cannot be faked. And you have lived it even on your lowest days. When your heart was shattered, you still found a way to mend someone else's. When your soul was weary, you showed up as a lifeline for the struggling. You prayed for those who never knew your pain. And you held up others while secretly battling storms that nearly drowned you. You offered a listening ear, a kind word, a gentle touch. All when you were desperate for the same yourself. No one saw the cost, but heaven recorded every sacrifice. You became a well for others while you were thirsty, light for others while you walked through darkness. Let's get honest, this is not weakness. It's supernatural strength. The world may think that giving from lack is foolish, but God calls it seed. Every act of kindness, every moment of compassion, every small decision to love, when bitterness would have been easier, became a spiritual deposit. You weren't just performing good deeds, you were sowing for a harvest that money cannot buy. You made compassion your default, to service your offering, and love your weapon. It's easy to give when you're overflowing, but you gave from the remnant, from the last of what you had, believing sometimes against all visible evidence that what you poured out would come back multiplied. This is the way of the kingdom. Give, and it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You made yourself available when others were absent, and your reward was being written in the unseen, even as you felt invisible. There were days you questioned if your sacrifice would ever matter, if anyone truly noticed, if your name would ever be called. But this is your confirmation. Heaven not only saw, heaven is responding. This next blessing, this sudden elevation, is not a random act of mercy, it is a harvest. You are stepping into a season where everything you gave in secret is about to be returned to you in public. The people who saw you as the backup are about to see God back you up. Those who dismissed your kindness as weakness will watch as favor and breakthrough chase you down. Even now, the atmosphere is thick with anticipation because the reward you're about to receive is not just for you, it's for every soul you lifted. Every burden you lightened. Every storm you spoke peace into. You were a blessing even when you needed a blessing. That selfless love did not go unnoticed. The harvest is not just coming, it's about to overtake you. Get ready. Chosen one, return is here. You have always been different, and that was never a flaw. But your signature from heaven, chosen one. You have felt the sting of not fitting in, the weight of standing out in a world that pressures everyone to blend into the background. From your earliest memories, you knew you saw the world through different eyes. Where others found comfort in the crowd, you felt a quiet urging to walk a path all your own. Maybe you tried, for a while, to mute your own light, to downplay your gifts, to shrink yourself to fit into spaces that couldn't hold the fullness of who you are. But it never worked. You couldn't unchoose what God had chosen. The journey hasn't been easy. Authenticity costs more than conformity ever will. It cost you friendships, opportunities, invitations, and sometimes your sense of belonging. There were rooms you left in tears because you refused to trade truth for acceptance. You've been called too much, too deep, too intense, by people who only understood the shallow end of the pool. You stood your ground, even when it meant standing alone, because something in your spirit wouldn't let you dilute your calling just to make others comfortable. This world celebrates imitation, but God anoints originality. You were never called to echo culture. You were designed to shift it. When others bowed to fit in, you stood tall to stand out. The very traits that made you odd in their eyes are the evidence of your heavenly assignment. Consider the lives of Joseph, David, Esther, one chosen for a calling that separated them from the crowd. Their uniqueness was their access, not their disqualification. In the same way, your difference is the key to the next level of favor. At times, the cost has been more than social, it has been spiritual. You wrestled with the loneliness of being misunderstood, the ache of watching doors close simply because you wouldn't compromise your values or hide your spiritual fire. And yet, through every moment of isolation, you became more convinced that you were never designed to blend in. God saw the tears, the questions, and the determination it took to keep showing up as your true self. You chose assignment over applause, purpose over popularity, and conviction over comfort. Now, the very things you once questioned are about to become the reason for your elevation. The difference that made you the outsider is about to make you the leader. The identity you refused to water down is about to become a banner of favor over your life. God is about to showcase what others tried to silence: your authenticity, your anointing, your unwavering stance. You are not rising because you imitated someone else, but because you dared to be the blueprint. Get ready. Chosen one. The shift that's coming is not just for you to see, it's for everyone who ever doubted your path to witness. The cost of standing out is about to become your greatest return. Heaven is not looking for copies, it's searching for originals. You are about to lead where you once walked alone. There have been moments in your journey when everything you could see, hear, and touch screamed defeat. The facts were clear. The numbers were against you, and the outcome looked certain. Yet, chosen one. In the face of the impossible, you held on to a faith that defied reality itself. Others may call it denial, but heaven calls it the highest form of trust that is not swayed by circumstance, not anchored in what's visible, but rooted in a promise deeper than the facts themselves. You stood in the storm, rain stinging your face, and declared, "My God is still able." When the report said there was no way, your spirit insisted there was a waymaker. Your bank account said, "Not enough." But your confession was, "More than enough is coming." The evidence around you said, "Stuck." But your hope shouted, "Freedom is near." This is not naive optimism. This is the faith that moves mountains. The kind of belief that rewrites destinies and bends reality to divine truth. Recall the stories of those who went before you, Abraham believing for a child when his body said, "Impossible." Daniel standing unshaken in a den of lions. Mary holding on to a promise that changed the world. Each one faced the facts. But let faith speak the final word. You have followed that lineage. You believed when belief itself seemed foolish. You declared victory when all the evidence pointed to defeat. This didn't mean you ignored reality, it meant you understood a deeper reality. The enemy tried to use the facts to silence your faith, to intimidate you into giving up on what God had already spoken. But every time the opposition roared, you let the roar inside, you answer back. You didn't wait for the breakthrough to start praising. You praised in the valley, danced in the drought, and celebrated the promise before the manifestation. This is what sets you apart. This is why heaven has marked your faith as unstoppable. Every time you refused to let go, even when the facts didn't budge, you were activating a spiritual law. Faith is the currency of heaven. It opens doors no person can shut and sets miracles in motion. The angels themselves stood watch as you spoke, hope over hopeless situations, as you prophesied life into dead places. What you didn't see was the chain reaction unleashed in the unseen, the shifts happening behind the curtain of your reality. Now, the impossible is about to bow to your faith. The very things that once seemed insurmountable are being rearranged for your good. The facts are about to catch up with the faith you carried for so long. What you believed in private is about to be revealed in public. Chosen one. Your unwavering trust, when the evidence was against you, is the key that unlocks the supernatural. Heaven is responding not just to your endurance, but to your audacious belief. Get ready for the suddenly moments. Miracles are about to show up where the facts said no. You're not just a survivor, you're a pioneer of the impossible laid prize. The world is about to witness what faith can do through one willing vessel. All along this journey, humility has been your quiet power. Chosen one. When you could have fought to be seen, you chose to stay hidden until God said, "Now." You had every right to defend yourself, to prove your worth, to claim the spotlight, or to clap back at those who misunderstood. But you didn't take the bait. Instead, you stayed low, surrendered the urge to compete, and trusted the process, believing that what God had for you would never pass you by. That rare posture is what makes heaven smile upon you in this hour. Humility in a world obsessed with image is radical. While others were racing for recognition, you chose integrity over attention. You didn't chase platforms or play politics. You focused on becoming the kind of vessel that God can trust at any altitude, in moments when you could have used your victories to silence your doubters. You instead let your silence speak volumes. You refuse to let pride poison your promotion. You let your heart remain tender, your motives pure, and your gratitude unwavering. That's why this elevation will not destroy you, it will establish you. Heaven's pattern has always been to lift those who bow low. Consider Joseph, who was promoted from prison to palace not because he campaigned for it, but because he let his character shine in the dark. Or Jesus himself, who washed feet before he wore a crown. You carry that same DNA. Your humility has become a throne. Your surrender, a scepter. Your heart posture, a key that unlocks what no human effort ever could. The people who ignored you, the circles that excluded you, the voices that tried to discredit you all are about to witness the vindication of your humility. Let this be your divine confirmation. You are about to rise. Not because you demanded a throne, but because you surrendered to the one who gives them. Every delay, every detour, every hidden season has prepared you for this moment of open reward. God is showcasing the ones who didn't seek to be showcased. He is pouring out honor upon those who made his approval their highest goal. You can trust this next level because it is not built on the applause of men, but on the rock-solid affirmation of the divine. So as this season opens, step boldly into your elevation, but carry your humility with you. The doors that open now are not by human hand, they are heaven's doing. Stand in awe, remain grateful, and let your character continue to outshine any crown. This is the time for you to receive, to rejoice, to rest in the knowledge that your heart has been seen, your journey validated, and your obedience rewarded. And here's the final twist. Chosen one, the real elevation isn't just about what you're about to receive. It's about who you're about to become for others. The blessing on your life is about to overflow into the lives around you. Your story will ignite the hope of a generation, and your authenticity will become the blueprint for others rising after you. Now, type "I receive it" in the comments if this resonates, because your yes activates this word. Heaven is smiling, earth is shifting, and your elevation is just beginning.